By this awful threat, his lust triumphed over her inflexible chastity, and Tarquin went off exulting in having successfully attacked her honor. Lucretia, overwhelmed with grief at such a frightful outrage, sent a message to her father at Rome and to her husband at Ardea, asking them to come to her, each accompanied by one faithful friend. It was necessary to act, and to act promptly. A horrible thing had happened. Spurius Lucretius came with Publius Valerius, the son of Volusus, Collatinus, and Licinius Junius Brutus, with whom he had happened to be returning to Rome when he was met by his wife's messenger. They found Lucretia sitting in her room, prostrate with grief. As they entered, she burst into tears, and to her husband's inquiry whether all was well, replied, "No, what can be well with a woman when her honor is lost? The marks of a stranger. Colintius, are you in bed? But it is only the body that was violated. The soul is pure. Death shall bear witness to that. But pledge me your solemn word that the adulterer shall not go unpunished. It is Sextus Tarquin, who coming as an enemy instead of a guest, forced from me last night by brutal violence a pleasure fatal to me, and, if you are men, fatal to him." They all successfully pledged their word, and tried to console the distracted woman by turning the guilt from the victim of the outrage to the perpetrator, and urging that it is the mind that sins, not the body, and where there has been no consent there is no guilt. "It is for you," she said, "to see that he gets his deserts. Although I acquit myself to the sin, I do not free myself from the penalty. No outcast woman shall henceforth live and plead Lucretia's example. She had a knife concealed in her dress which she had plunged into her heart, and fell dying on the floor. Her father and husband raised death, raised the death cry." 1.59. Whilst they were absorbed in grief, Brutus drew the knife from Lucretia's wound, and holding it dripping with blood in front of him, said, "By this blood, most pure, before the outrage wrought by the king's son, I swear, and you, O gods, I call to witness that I will drive hence Lucretius Tarquinius Superbus, together with his cursed wife and his whole brood, with fire and sword and every means in my power, and I will not suffer them or anyone else to reign in Rome." Then he handed the knife to Colintinus, and then to Lucretius, and to Valerius, who were all astonished by the marvel of the thing, wondering, when, wondering whence Brutus had acquired this new character. They swore as they directed all their grief changed to wrath, and they followed the lead of Brutus, who summoned them to abolish the monarchy forthwith. They carried the body of Lucretia from her home down to the Forum, where, owing to the unheard of cruelty of the crime, they at once collected a crowd. Each had his own complaint to make of the wickedness and violence of the royal house. Whilst all were moved by the father's deep distress, Brutus bade them to stop their tears and idle laments, and urged them to act as men and Romans, to take up arms against their insolent foes. All the high-spirited amongst the younger men came forward as armed volunteers. The rest followed their example. A portion of this body was left to hold Colicia, and guards were stationed at the gates to prevent any news of the movement from reaching the king. The rest marched out of Rome, with Brutus in command. On the arrival, the sight of so many men in arms spread panic and confusion wherever they marched. But when again the people saw that the foremost men of the state were leading the way, they realized that whatever the movement was, it was a serious one. The terrible occurrence created no less excitement in Rome than it had done in Colicia. There was a rush from all the quarters of the city to the Forum. When they had gathered there, the herald summoned them to attend the tribune of the cellars. This was the office which Brutus happened at the time to be holding. He made a speech quite out of keeping with the character and temper he had up to that day assumed. He dwelt upon the brutality and this Sectus Tarquin, the infamous outrage on Lucretia, and her pitiful death. The bereavement sustained by her father, Tropicunus, to whom the cause of his daughter's death was more shameful and distressing than the actual death itself. Then he dealt on the tyranny of the king, the tolls and suffering of the plebeians, kept out underground, clearing out ditches and sewers. Roman men, conquerors, and all the surrounding nations turned from warriors into artisans and stonemasons. He reminded them of the shameful murder of Cyrus Tullius and his daughter driving in a cursed chariot over her father's body, and solemnly invoked the gods of the avengers of murdered parents. By enumerating these, and I believe other still more curious incidents, which his keen sense of the present injustice suggested, but which is not easy to give in detail, he goaded on the licensed multitude to strip the king of his sovereignty and pronounce a sentence of banishment against Tarquin and with his wife and children. With a picked boy of the juniors who volunteered to follow him, he went off to the camp to Ardea to incite the army against the king, leaving command in the city of Lucrinus, who had previously been made prefect of the city by the king. During the common Tullia fled from the palace and missed the excretions of all whom she met, men and women alike invoking against her father's avenging spirit.